Let's wrap up our course for the semester. So, we're going to talk about integration and intersections here. We're going to talk about the intersection of career and non-career related issues, and then we're going to talk about integration of theory. As we think about how career connects to mental health, hopefully you can see as we've gone through the course and talked about various issues that connect across the career counseling space to life and workspace. There are really a number of things that represent connections between career and mental health. There are 6 guiding principles that our book offers that help you think about these connections and elucidate these a little bit. So, first, obviously, work impacts your quality of life. So, the quality of your work environment, but also your work in terms of its ability to provide for your basic needs and your family support. So, this concept of work life balance and a livable wage, there are a lot of aspects of work that impact your quality of life outside of just the career space. Second, work obviously impacts your mental health, but also your health impacts your work. So, thinking about how work impacts mental health, sometimes in really positive ways, your work environment can be really positive and supportive to help you have a really strong sense of identity, maybe a really strong connection to a social support system in your place of work that are really supportive of your mental health. But they can also be detrimental to your mental health. So your work may be stressful and demanding. They may create difficulties for you to be able to balance different things and it may not be a very healthy environment. Your health also impacts your work. So, in terms of physical health, thinking about things like accessibility and disability, not everyone has equal access to different career spaces. In the mental health realm, thinking about individuals who are exposed to trauma and over time burnout and mental health issues can impact your ability to work and impacts your work. So, I mean, you could have really positive health impacts where you're in a work environment that really gives you an opportunity to be active or lets you go take a walk or lets you take breaks or mental health days when you need them so that your health is really positive and then you have a positive impact on work. But on the other side of things, they may be detrimental too. The third guiding principle here is understanding the implications of transitions of work. So, work transitions can be really positive and supportive. You might get a promotion, you might get an opportunity to move to a new place that has a lot more to offer you and your family, or be closer to your family, because a lot of times we have to choose between doing what we want in our career or being close to our family. We heard about that. I know I heard about that a lot in reading your career autobiographies this semester. So, thinking also about work transitions, suddenly getting laid off is hugely disruptive to your life in a lot of ways. There's a lot of implications that transition in the workspace can have a positive impact on mental health or a negative one. We also have to understand how sociocultural factors impact career development and work experiences. So we don't work in a vacuum, just like we don't live in a vacuum. There's a lot of sociocultural factors, a lot of systemic factors that impact our ability to have access to career training, to career advancement, to our ability to be in meaningful careers. So this idea of working to live versus living to work. And our work experiences are largely driven by that. So if we have access to some of the things that make our careers very interpersonally fulfilling, that's going to have a positive impact on our mental health. If it's not a work environment that's interpersonally fulfilling, we might struggle or we might suffer outside of that workspace. So sociocultural factors absolutely play a factor and really reinforce this idea that there's not an equal access level playing field system that we're operating in. The fifth principle is understanding how individuals have to navigate multiple life roles. So, navigating the role of being a parent, being a partner, being a friend, being an athlete. There's a lot of life spaces where you have to negotiate where to give your time and attention. And sometimes that creates some mental distress for individuals. Sometimes it creates a sense of fulfillment because you feel like you're able to balance these things really well. So there's a lot of decision making that comes with career, and a lot of career related decision making means navigating and negotiating your different life roles. Think about lifespan and life spaces, right? We talked about this in Super's theory. So we have to consider that these things don't happen in isolation and that there's a lot of negotiating that happens in all of the trajectory of a career. And the final and very important guiding principle is understanding that economic and social factors impact our access to employment. When our economy is not doing so well, we have a lot of inflation, our paychecks don't go as far, and it definitely impacts our ability to have the things we need to thrive and survive, but also potentially access our ability to get into employment in general. Our latest job report shows that we have higher rate of unemployment and we have a decrease in new jobs available. And so there's a lot of impact to our access to training, our access to employment, and our access to gainful employment in particularly the United States based on policies, based on social factors, and based on the swing of the economic system. Thus, work and mental health are very, very connected. There are three main examples of this. First is stress. We spend the majority of our lives in our career space, and work can be a source of eustress, which is a stress that gives energy and motivation and purpose, or it can be a source of distress, which is really destructive and detrimental to individuals. Prime example of this is the idea of deadlines. So for some individuals, deadlines are motivational. They are helpful. They provide structure needed to be successful. They give you energy and motivation. For some, deadlines can be really de-stressing. They can be destructive. They can create a lot of pressure. They can negatively impact job performance. So there can be positive stress that comes from work environments or negative stress that comes from work environments, but both definitely have an impact on mental health. Thinking about the idea of gainful employment. And gainful employment is the concept that your employment gives you adequate um, income, a livable wage, to be able to access your basic needs, but also your employment it engages all of your skills or your potential skills in that environment. And in the United States, our employment is often our source of health insurance. So our employment gives us access to income, which gives us access to shelter and food and transportation and all the things that we need, but also health insurance, which gives us access to mental health and physical health resources that we need. So think about how disruptive it would be to take a pay cut or to get laid off. That's not just about your career space. It really threatens your ability to engage in the things that you need to be able to live. And in the United States, it's estimated about 25% of our workforce are underemployed. We have a sizable percentage of individuals who work full time and still qualify for SNAP benefits and Medicaid because their income level is so low, even though they work full time. So, that idea of being underemployed and not having gainful employment certainly has effects on an individual's both mental and physical health. The third connecting idea here is environment. So your work environment may be really positive. It may represent social supports. It may be something that is really fulfilling and helps you have a positive sense of mental health. Your work environments may also be very toxic. It may be full of adversity. It may be full of blame and shame and very toxic individuals or a toxic culture. Over time, that definitely leads to stress, distress, and it definitely has a negative impact on mental health over time, which in a lifespan, negative mental health impacts lead to physical health impacts. So, thinking about developing things like diabetes, heart disease, dementia to some degree, a lot of these have ties to a lifelong struggle with mental health too. So, there's a lot of connection between mental health, physical health, and the world of work. So, as we wrap up the course, I want you to think about the separation between career and counseling and how these things are really integrated and connected. Career is rarely your primary focus in counseling work. There are some settings where that is the main focus, thinking about vocational rehab, for example, or college settings, um, to some degree, school counseling settings, that might be a primary intervention or primary focus. In the majority of settings, career is a part of the overall picture, it's a part of holistic practice. And so it's woven into our work throughout. It's really integrated and connected. And so career counseling maybe not necessarily primary intervention, but could be a secondary or tertiary intervention that we use in support of our other mental health related work or other school counseling related work. So, in terms of the idea of connecting career and counseling, holistic counseling means taking into account the impact of career on the life space in positive and negative ways, how we negotiate our different life roles in relation to career, and how we integrate career into our overall work. So it's not unusual for me to pull out some career related assessments when I'm doing trauma related work, because some individuals have a lot of trauma and shame attached to their career choices or their career experiences. Thinking about our conference theory, one of my favorites, because it incorporates this idea that we have a lot of opinions in our lives and a lot of sense of identity and worth connected to what we do. A lot of you talked about this in your autobiographies too. So I want you, as we wrap up our course, to think about what barriers you have in your own minds in that separates career from overall counseling. And to maybe challenge some of those biases and barriers that you have in your mind that career is a totally separate thing and it's not really a part of your overall life space, because hopefully this course has led to discussions and thinking that career is really integrated into our life. It's a big part of who we are. It's a big part of how we navigate our life spaces. And thus, it's a big part of what we talk about in counseling, whether we're explicitly doing quote unquote career counseling or not. Career is very much part of the conversation in holistic practice. Which brings us to the concept of integration. So we're talking about integrating career into overall counseling, but we also need to talk about integrating theory into our work. We looked at a lot of theory this semester, and theory really should drive your decision making, your treatment plans, even the language that you use in your counseling work. Theory is really the guide and the path that you take to reach your goals as a professional counselor. And you might be digging into some of these theories thinking, well, not just in the realm of career counseling theories, but there's not one theory that really fits just perfectly for me. There is this concept of integrated theory, which tends to be more advanced. These might not be things you get into until after your initial training program. But integrated theory meaningfully incorporates concepts from multiple theories into one meta theory. And in integrated theory, we get an evidence based way to meaningfully integrate different concepts and give us a path to use concepts from different things together to support the client's wellness. Some examples of this might be EMDR, motion focused therapy, internal family systems, acceptance and commitment, dialectical behavioral therapy, trauma focused cognitive behavioral therapy. So, a lot of these theories that we hear a lot about that are newer on the scene, have a lot of evidence and research behind them, are what's considered integrated theories, where they meaningfully incorporate concepts from more than one theory. And there are a lot of opportunities out there to learn a lot of things in your career. I would encourage you to find the things that really connect well with your style, with your approach, with the populations you want to serve, and spend your career pursuing mastery of these things. It's really easy to get excited about a lot of stuff. I'm just as guilty. And I feel that it's more beneficial over the course of your career to choose something that really fits and spend your career pursuing mastery of that thing. And I say pursuing mastery because I don't think we ever achieve mastery. But pursuing mastery over the course of your career means you're always looking for opportunities to learn new things, to consult about new concepts, to further your understanding about the work that you do and the theory that you use. That seems to be a lot more beneficial over the course of a career than taking an introductory course to like 5 different meta theories and knowing just enough about each one of them to maybe get into some work, but not be able to troubleshoot when something goes wrong. Pursuing mastery means that you're able to navigate almost any situation within the context of the theory that you're using. It takes a lot of time and practice to be able to do that. So, over the course of your career, think about ways that you can pursue mastery of the things that connect with your professional identity, population you serve, and your own style and approach to the work. Use theory with purpose. And it takes time to know a theory well enough to use it with purpose. With that, I am wrapping up our semester with our career course and our conversations. I've so enjoyed getting to have conversations about career and different aspects of career, both in terms of our clients and your own path. And I look forward to visiting with you again in another course.